Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder. Thor is gone, but there are still plenty of things happening in his world. Elder gods make treaties, the Enchantress wrestles with her morality, dead gods fight in the city of the dead, Scourge struggles to move on, and more. These are the Tales of Asgard on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, prince of Asgard, and this world is under my protection.
The Immortal Thor number 19 was written by Al Ewing and was published in January of 2025. The story begins with the last stanza from the heroic poem Gudrun. May all men's lot be bettered, all women's sorrow lessened, to whom this tale of woes shall be recounted. Gudrun, or the incitement of Gudrun, consists of Gudrun recounting her sorrows to her sons. Gudrun is the wife of Sigurd, the most famous Norse hero and the slayer of the dragon Fafnir. However, her life was filled with hardships. Sigurd was killed by Gudrun's brothers, and after that her new husband, Atli, who, fun fact, is based on Attila the Hun, kills her brothers against her will. Finally, she escapes and lives with her daughter Svanhild. Svanhild is eventually married off, and her husband, King Jormunrek, kills her. This poem is Gudrun attempting to goad her sons into getting revenge on Jormunrek. Her recounting of her troubles is part of that goading, and she ends it with this stanza which essentially says that everyone's troubles will not seem so horrible when they are compared to what Gudrun has suffered. This stanza relates to the story because the issue is in many cases tales of woe. Tales of broken heroes, conflicted villains, and approaching tragedies. In particular, Magni's tale of being the last survivor of his people is contrasted with the even more tragic tale of Beta Ray Bill. This causes Magni to reconsider staying in Asgard for fear that his tales of woe will be as horrible as Bill's. Would you know more? Then know this. The story I tell is not the story of Thor. For Thor took a journey to the far stars to seek out one whose advice he had long been without, and whose presence he sorely missed. This is not the tale of a king, but of a kingdom, and thus it is many tales, all wound together. Sif stands vigilant, watching Thor fly to the far stars, and the son of Thor approaches her. Despite the fact that Amora brought him here to succeed Thor, Magni has no desire to be Thor's heir. Magni is the son of Thor from another timeline, and he feels out of place. This Asgard is completely unknown to him, so Sif counsels him to explore the Golden Realm and get to know the people of Asgard. Magni laughs, realizing that Sif's words are wise in both timelines, and goes to find Asgard and then himself. This little line from Magni is a reference to the fact that Sif in the original timeline acted as a mentor to Magni. Amora the Enchantress looks into her crystal ball and sees her son from another time. She muses that while Magni may not want to be Thor's heir, the All-Power does not care, and it will pass through the family line. If Thor dies, it will pass to Magni, but if Magni dies after that, will it travel back to Magni's other parent? A chill is felt by Amora as she realizes what she has just suggested, a terrible crime to gain unimaginable power. Amora has found herself on a precipice. I think initially she only wanted to ensure relative stability and a position as Queen Mother by bringing in Magni, but she just realized that there is a possibility she could get more. By killing her own son, she could, in theory, get the all-power for herself. However, while I do understand her logic, I don't think that would work. The all-power would most likely seek out another child of Odin. But if she can trick Magni into making her his successor, then that would probably do the trick. Regardless of the logic or how this will play out, I do like that Amora didn't initially plan this. It occurs to her just now, and she's disgusted with herself when she realizes just how far she's fallen. There is a knock on the door. Did you laugh? She is greeted by the face of another loved one she has wronged. When you used me as a pawn, when I saw you as a friend and you saw only a tool, did you laugh, Enchantress? Amora looks away in shame, but says that she did not laugh. While she did use him for power, she would rather have Scourge survive than Thor forced to choose. Scourge is glad to know that Amora wants him around, but she's wasted valuable time in him stealing Thor's death. The Enchantress asks why he must die. He is alive again. He could have anything, everything. Ah, Amora, what use is everything if I lose the one true thing I had. And Amora had nothing to say, for Scourge's words cut deep. I really like this scene, and what it does for both characters involved. Scourge's initial question of if Amora laughed is a great callback to the event that defined him, and it demonstrates her history of harming people close to her for her own gain. This question is of course a reference to Thor number 362, which may be my favorite Thor comic. In this issue, Scourge says that after all this time of Amora and others laughing at him, now he will have the last laugh. He no longer allows himself to be manipulated by others, but instead takes control of his own fate and makes a heroic final stand at Gallerbrew. It was the one true and meaningful thing in his life, but now fate attempts to take that away from him by giving Thor the death that Scourge took for himself. While Scourge thought Amora was helping him reclaim this death, she was again manipulating him for her own gain. She tries to justify herself to Scourge, but she's still confronted with the possibility that she may always be someone who uses people to get what she wants. She once again used Scourge to gain power, and she wonders if it really is worth gaining everything if she gives up the true and meaningful things in her life. Magni admires the Twilight Sword that Beta Ray Bill now bore into battle, and tells Bill how in his timeline, Beta Ray Bill was regarded as the most heroic of the gods of Asgard. Bill feels no comfort in this, for he is not a god, nor is he human. He's the last of his race, the race that he failed to protect. Sometimes he wonders if he can have a home here or anywhere else. He meets with Sif and wonders if he will ever feel anything meaningful for more than a brief moment. Sif guarded the gleaming rainbow bridge, but carried her own sorrows. She used her great sight to peer out as far as she could see, in the hopes of catching a glimpse of her brother Heimdall's soul. If she could only see him once more, would he be at peace? Heimdall was not at peace. He was swarmed and begged Hermod, the son of Odin and god of speed, to run to Asgard to warn Thor. Nergal rises. The city of death is alive. Hermod is hesitant to leave Heimdall, and that moment of hesitation was doom. I am really happy that Hermod is back, and that Heimdall is as well. I was disappointed that Ewing killed off Hermod immediately after reintroducing him, and the fact that he died in such a definitive way made me think he'd never come back in the story. Little did I know that Ewing gave him such a definitive death so that he could bring back another character with a definitive death, Heimdall. When Heimdall died, he wanted to go to an afterlife he had never seen before, one beyond Hell and Valhalla. Turns out that afterlife was Nergal's city of the dead. Nergal is a Mesopotamian god of death, war, and disease. More importantly, he is mentioned by Utgard-Loki as one of the Utgard gods, so he's going to be a big part in their war with Thor. Ullr watched these events unfold in the secret fire. Athena draws the card of death for Thor, and a broken Zeus mutters of darkness and the turn of the wheel. They are not Ullr's only visitors. Scourge demands an audience with the Lord of the Yew. He will need to steal Thor's death, and he'll need an enchanted axe to do it, but Ullr warns that the price will be severe, on his very soul. Scourge agrees. Initially, in his interaction with Amora, Scourge is presented as the one in the right. He's not pursuing power, but instead the true and meaningful things. However, here we can see that it's not so clear-cut. While Scourge's sacrifice was a true and great moment for him, we see here it has become a roadblock. He doesn't think himself capable of having anything beyond that heroic death, and rather than building off of that moment, he is sacrificing everything he has left to have it again. Magni hears of a brawl in the tavern and goes to help, but finds the fight doesn't need the god of strength. The Warriors 4 have started this brawl, and they will end it on their own just as easily. In Valhalla, a place of fighting and drinking, Odin was in poor spirits. He was not made for the idle pleasures of the eternal feast. He was made to wander, to seek knowledge and make it his. Instead, he spent his life as a king on a throne, and now he is nothing. A ghost among ghosts that await a Ragnarok that is already past. He cannot help his son who faces death, and Thor doesn't visit him in Valhalla. This is an interesting scene, and I particularly want to talk about Odin's comments about what he was made to do. This feels like a bit of a critique of the Marvel version of Odin's accuracy to Norse mythology. Odin, in the Norse myths, is less of a king who sits on a throne, and more of a wanderer who seeks out knowledge and stirs up conflict. Marvel Odin initially seemed more based off of the Judeo-Christian god or Zeus than Odin in Norse mythology. Not only did he have both his eyes, no ravens, and no spear, but he seemed to rule and act entirely from his throne. He was a fount of wisdom and knowledge, but never really sought out more. On a less meta level, Odin's failure to be more active in seeking out wisdom has led to his current predicament. He is dead and completely without the tools he needs to help his son. I also like the rather humanizing touch of Odin being sad that Thor doesn't visit him. I initially thought that this might be where Thor is going in the beginning of the story, but since he's going to the distant stars, his mother Freya is more likely. But hopefully he'll visit Odin soon. But, hopefully not dead when he does it. Eirik, son of Amora, thinks he heard someone call his name at the gates, but Odin tells Eirik to ignore it. Amora's plan is foiled, so she speaks to Odin as herself. She had a chance to say a final goodbye to her son, and instead she chose a road to power. "It seemed like the way to get everything I wanted," she says. "But what use is everything? Please, Odin, hear me. I would choose again." But Odin was dead. Balder lies in the grass with Magni, complimenting him on his decision to not seek the throne, as it is better to lie in the green grass, listen to bird song, and know peace. His uncle Balder quickly realizes that Magni is bored silly, and tells him to roam free and find peace somewhere else in Asgard. Magni's great-great-grandfather stood beyond the realms admiring Utgard-Loki's great hall. Tiwaz reassures his brother that he has nothing to fear from him. He has not come to tear the hood from the hooded one, nor yoke the great bull, nor map the endless city. Gaia willingly set him loose on her realm, and Tiwaz will respect that. However, he will not stand any of the Utgard gods stepping into his realm, Andlong. Utgard-Loki says that Thor won the first round, and so Gaia gave Thor a chance. However, Midgard has not changed, and now Thor has less sway there than ever, so Gaia has unlocked the gate again. Still, Utgard-Loki tells Tiwaz that they will not come to Andlong in their campaign. Not to Andlong. It's really cool getting to see the inner politics of the Elder God siblings. Tiwaz respects that Gaia wants the Utgard gods to invade her realm, but he expects Utgard-Loki to show the same respect for his own realm. It also says a lot about Tiwaz that he feels the threat of him entering the war is enough to get Utgard-Loki to back off. Tiwaz makes references to besting the Hooded One, the Great Bull, and the Endless City. These are references to the three Utgard gods who Utgard-Loki mentioned in Medjed, the Egyptian god who usually is seen wearing something like a hood, Kemer, an Egyptian bull god, and Nergal, a Mesopotamian god of death whose Endless City we just saw Heimdall and Hermod in. These three gods seem to make up a substantial part of the Utgard pantheon, and the fact that they are presented in a group of three like Thor's three weapons may not be a coincidence. We also got a very interesting line from Utgard-Loki that Gaia allowed Thor a chance to get the people of Midgard to change, but seeing that Thor has less sway on Earth than he ever has, she decided that time was up and opened the gate again. I really loved this revelation since it makes Thor's Midgard storyline make more sense in the overall narrative, but it also exposes just how poorly handled that storyline was. Thor attacks Dario Agger to get him to stop polluting the Earth, but then from then on, he never attempts to get the humans to change again. He never really brings it up, and instead seems to want to clear his name just so he can hang out on Earth. Not because he has to convince the entire human race to change their ways. I wish we had gotten more of that sense of desperation, as Thor tries to convince the people of Earth, but all of them call him a criminal and ignore him. Again, this explanation does help clarify why Gaia unlocked the gate, and I do like it, but we're given no indication that it would happen soon if Thor didn't do something. Tiwaz returns to Andlong to find Loki there, and he asks him how Loki's spell is progressing. The first act is almost at its end, and Loki will end it if need be. There is no other way, as they have been in autumn too long. There must be winter. Amora faced her own winter. She attempts to apologize to her other son, Alvi, and asks for a chance to change things, but he wants nothing to do with her. She traded Eirik before he was even born, and while she did save him, she wasn't there when he died. For all Alvi knows, she didn't save Eirik because his death canceled out her deaths. A shadow comes across her face, and she strengthens her resolve. Everything, then. This was a surprising and interesting arc for Amora. She finds herself about to do something horrible to get all the power she could ever want, but is stopped by the thoughts of the people she cared about, Scourge and her sons. She makes attempts to connect with them, with the people she's had true and meaningful connections with, but the choices she's made have made those people unwilling or unable to trust her again. So, if she can't have true things that she's valued, then she would instead pursue gaining everything. She steals her heart and resolves to do whatever it takes to gain power. Magni looks out on the Golden Realm, but he still can't find his place in it. He is not alone, as the mercenary Blackjack O'Hare is also there, and he feels he doesn't belong in peaceful Asgard. Magni decides that he needs adventuring, before he joins Beta Ray Bill in brooding over a lost people. The two shake hands, and a new partnership begins. It's perhaps not too surprising that Magni decided to follow in his father's footsteps and go off adventuring rather than seek the throne. Still, I would have preferred him and Thor together a bit longer, but they'll no doubt be reunited soon enough. Ullr presents the new blood axe to Scourge, noting the terrible price to forge it. With this axe, Scourge will cut off Thor's hands and take his weapons, and his death. However, it is not just his death that nears. Ullr looks into the flames and sees a dark doom. The Utgard gods come, and this time, they come for Asgard. Well, they didn't attack on long. The Utgard gods have brought Asgard into the war, which feels like the first truly villainous thing they've done. Attacking Earth fit within their laws, as Gaia specifically asked them to, but this feels born purely out of spite. It will be interesting to see how Tiwaz reacts to this. He founded the Asgardian race, and if any Elder God has jurisdiction in Asgard, it's him. Still, if he enters the war, that would open up Onlong to it as well. In the past, I have been critical of Ewing focusing on elements that weren't essential to the overall story, such as the gods of Midgard. So you'd think I'd be very critical of a collection of side stories now. But that's not the case. I'd actually go as far as to say that this is one of the single most important pieces of the overall story of the Immortal Thor. Thor's mission, whether he knows it or not, is to bring an end to the stagnation and status quo of the characters in his world so they can truly grow and change. While any comic reader could infer that the status quo does exist, it is here that we can clearly see how it negatively affects these characters. Amora is a villain who uses her charms to get what she wants, and although she may want to change, she feels that she is incapable of doing so. Scourge is a character who is completely defined by one moment, and he feels he cannot exist without that moment or progress beyond it. Beta Ray Bill is perpetually in a state of aimlessness and cannot find lasting happiness. Odin's current role in the status quo is that of a ghost who has outlived his usefulness. It really lets us see why Thor has to die, and what he will accomplish by doing so. This is actually one of my favorite issues. It really lets us see the human side of many gods. It gave us a look at the politics and relationships of the Elder Gods. Plus, we got so many artists in this issue, and all of them, for the most part, did a great job. Some of them I would probably rather take control of the whole series. And it also provided an essential chapter for the series, which I am excited to see progress. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. I hope you enjoyed it and the issue. By the way, this is a new iteration of the Tales of Asgard. Does anyone else remember the Tales of Asgard? It feels like it's been forever since we got those, so let me know in the comments below your personal favorite Tale of Asgard, because I always thought they were fun. Anyway, with that being said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where...